Everyone, to the 16th episode of the Science and Healthcare Sustainability Podcast. We're delighted today to be joined by Dr. Marie Parker from the University of Leeds. Alex is going to kick us off with a standard question, if you don't mind, Alex.
Morning, Marie. Thanks for joining us. Great to have you with us. First question, which is the same every single time. What is sustainability to you?
Well, I imagine my answer is not going to be very different from everybody else's. It's basically to minimise the impact for future generations. And obviously it's a bit harder in the lab environment because we are so dependent on energy and plastic. And we obviously want to still conduct world-class research, but we just want to leave the world better off through both our scientific advancements and our responsible practices.
Yeah, spot on. As you say, it's a common theme with most of our guests on both sides of the fence, both within the lab and manufacturers and distributors and everyone else we've had on board. So I think we all know there's a problem there. What would you say is the scale of that problem in labs specifically?
Well, we all know how much energy the labs require, depending on your field of research. How much plastic is used to deliver results? It's massive. You heard Caitlin and Andrea talking about that last podcast. So every single experiment needs, generally in a high research environment like we are, has like a freezer, a fridge, a -70/80 depending on what you're doing. We do so much tissue culture in our research environment, so everything's single-use plastics as well. So it's immense problem in labs, to be honest.
Yeah, I think it's easy to sort of get a bit down on that though, but I think something you said earlier was spot on in that, particularly where you work, you're a senior lab manager from them being a sort of cancer research building or across several buildings. That is life-saving research, so it's imperative that it's done. Unfortunately, the casualty is, there's some plastics or a lot of plastics that are produced, so the aim is to try and limit that without impeding the research, I suppose.
How do you think that the UK compares to the rest of the world in terms of the importance they put on sustainability?
I think as a whole we're doing pretty well. People do recycle. There's a lot of initiatives about electric cars. A lot of our energy is from sustainable. Obviously we've got the most wind farms, I think, in the world as well. But we can always improve. Obviously we're talking about labs as well today, aren't we? So there's a lot of great practices out there, and obviously they're supported by LEAF, Green Impact and My Green Lab, which obviously helps you frame what you're actually doing. And also, I'll probably talk about it later as well, My Green Lab does the International Freezer Challenge, which we all know scientists love graphs and numbers, and it gives you tangible results to share with the rest of the group so they know how well they're doing. And also I think the impetus has come because Wellcome and CRUK, you need LEAF certification to actually get funding now as well, which I think will drive it even further. And then I might as well talk about University of Leeds. They actually, probably like a lot of universities, actually have a sustainable strategy. So it includes a pathway to net zero in varying forms, I think. And also they have a blueprint, which is a flagship sustainability engagement framework, which allows schools and services to better understand and act upon their own social and environmental impacts and how they can contribute to the university's sustainable goals. So after LEAF, that's my next thing for our institute, is blueprints. I don't know everything about it yet, but in about 4 months' time, hopefully I will.
That sounds fantastic. There's a lot of pressures from sort of the funding bodies, and as you said, from other organisations to be more sustainable. But you actually seeing that change in the scientists at the bench, their perception and their attitude towards sustainability?
Yes, everybody's massively aware of how much plastic we use and how much waste we create. And there's a massive hunger for change out there. We got bronze last June for LEAF, and we're basically working towards our silver accreditation, hopefully submitting soon. And when I asked for volunteers, it was overwhelming. Luke knows we've got 400 researchers on site here in our institute, and then there's another 50 or so in another institute on site. And currently there's 17 of us on our sustainability group. So that's every single floor, every single facility, and then anybody who is thinking of or has a CR UK grant has actually got someone on the sustainability group. The actual hunger for change is massive, so it makes it a lot easier because every single floor's got someone that people can go and talk to. They've got other ideas, and obviously everybody thinks differently about how they can recycle or do things differently. So it's created a massive change, and we've managed to push forward with a lot of things as well to help with sustainability here on site. We work on a trust site, and we've reached out to the waste manager there to see whether we can do any other things. So we're in the process of doing that as well. So
Fantastic.
Yeah, sounds like you're on it. Tell us a little bit about what you do and where. It's your time to kind of introduce yourself to everybody who's listening.
Right, I was actually a researcher, so I've done a PhD in molecular biology many moons ago, and then I actually moved in to do research in breast cancer research in the first sort of 20 odd years ago with molecular biology, and then I moved into doing transplant immunology, but using the same techniques, obviously a massive change of field. And then at the time when I was doing research, it was very much you got 2 or 3 years funding, and then you had to get a new job or get your own funding. And then a lab manager role came up, which I applied for, and they're a little bit more stable. So applied for that, got that role. That was just for a floor lab manager. Then it's morphed into what I'm doing now, which is obviously managing 2 buildings and all the researchers in it. So I'm help support the research to make sure it's world leading. So basically I do all the service contracts, I look after health and safety, I help with the purchasing. On site obviously was here through the pandemic doing varying bits and pieces, and just make sure that everything is going as well as it can be, getting the best value for money, making sure that when things don't work they start working again, which obviously is all to do with sustainability, which then leads me into why I started to do some things years ago. We were doing, I used to run the stores, and one of the things obviously we used to have loads of tip, and then one of the ideas was that we'd actually try and recycle the tip boxes, and this actually started 10 years ago. We were recycling tip boxes from varying companies, and we used to then do framework orders for ethanol for everybody to use on site. And we started to recycle the bottles as well. That was back in 2017. So we've sort of like I've been on a sort of a slow burn journey into sustainability, and then back in 2022, sort of like just at the end of all coming back from the pandemic, we were just sort of looking at things we could do, and I happened to label up all our fridges and freezers ready for an audit of all our fridges and freezers on site. And I've spotted the International Freezer Challenge that My Green Lab run, and so I asked our institute director if I could sign up to see how we were doing, because we already had some good practices. We've just completed our 4th year of Freezer Challenge, and we were actually 5th out of 127 institutes that signed up in our category, and helped the University of Leeds to 7th. Like I said before, you get some really good data on how much energy you can save. So I think the first year we did it, we were just sort of having a bit of a play with it. I think we saved about 260 kilowatt hours a day from all our all the things we did. And then the next 2 years it was over 900 kilowatt hours per day. And then this year it was about 470. So this basically is the things you do normally. So it's basically defrosting your freezers. So that's ultra low freezers and normal freezers. Disposing of your items correctly, sharing your pieces of equipment, doing maintenance on them. So basically making sure there's no snow in your -80. It's obviously quite a big thing, is dropping your -80 to your -70. And I think it's interesting to know that actually, that if you swap one -80 to 70, you save about £600 a year, money wise. And I think it's over 1,000 kilowatt hours. So it makes quite a big impact, and it's really easy to do. And then it's organising. It's obviously make sure your freezers are racked out and everything's labelled, and everything, you know, and everything, then everything's just easier to do. Every time you've done it, it's easier to do the next year. So the first year you do it is quite hard, but as you can probably tell, the fact that we've got rid of probably 90 fridges and freezers doing this. That's part of our entire institute, so it's massive. And then I think we've reduced our -80 freezers to -70. I think 60 to 70% of our -80s have gone down to -70. And those that haven't, because we're a massive cancer research institute, they're all HTA compliant, so it's a bit harder for them to be moving their temperatures down to -70. And then I would say probably 80% of them are really well maintained as well now, so they all scrape down their ice, you know, sweep out the snow, defrost the doors after they defrosted it. So it sort of just becomes normal practice, which is what you want sustainability to be, is it just becomes part of your normal part of work. You're not even thinking about that it's doing anything sustainable. Then obviously I collate all the information and put it into the portal and get the results back, and people can see what impact they're actually making. So I think people like to see what impact they're making, and it's an easy win, that one, to be honest, and it's free as well.
Yeah.
So
Well, it's cost positive.
If you consider my favourite stat, which is each kind of -80 uses the same amount of energy as a small semi-detached house, you've effectively just saved the equivalent of a village on one site, which, if you think about it like that, it's pretty mind-blowing for a relatively small change.
yeah, it is, and like you said, it's a really small change. And most people are quite happy to. When I started my PhD, it was a -70 freezer. So it wasn't a -80 freezer, it was a -70 freezer. So,
Yeah. You say most people, did you get kickback on that from anyone? I know the HTA probably can't get around that, but was there any other legitimate issues that people raised that they didn't want to store at -70? Because that'd be quite useful for the listeners, I think, who are going through the same process of what to anticipate in terms of kickback.
Yeah. To be honest, they've all been pretty supportive here. So I think it's once you've done one, because we did a bit and we sent out, and we sort of did quite well in the first one we did. And then we're having a massive lab move, which is why I'm able to get rid of a load of fridges and freezers, because we're just being ruthless. And then obviously when they see the amount of energy you've saved by doing all this, that's why I think having the numbers is really useful. No, because a lot of them just suddenly I was just like, oh, there's 6 more have just been turned down to -70,
Yeah.
without me having a witter on about it. So yeah, there's a few I think we probably need to just sort of think about a bit more. But even other people who are biobanking or have human tissue are more thinking about, or perhaps we could share or get, you know, or move samples so they're in the same freezer, so then you can switch one off, because one of them has actually completely been switched off. So it's there if we ever need it, but it doesn't need it. And then one of the other things to think about is we do need to have -80, -70 available in case a Human Tissue Act freezer fails, or precious samples from research. People go, you've got it on, yeah, but pack it out. So all we've done is pack it out with polystyrene boxes filled with ice packs, and it's like it's full, but it's not, because all you've got to do is take out the 6 boxes that were in it to put your racking in. It's still supporting and making sure that all the research samples are kept as they should be, but you're still being sustainable, because that one is actually at -70. So, because obviously for a small period of time it's fine while you get the other one fixed. It's just thinking. Yes, you do need to do things, but you can still make a difference by making sure it's not chilling down an empty space. Just make the space faked, packed out, basically, is what we've done. So, and make sure they're defrosted and then looked after, and we make sure they are, so they get, you know, cleaned out and maintained as well. So.
Yeah, excellent. You're clearly very sort of passionate about sustainability. What inspired you to become a staff sustainability architect?
It's one of those things I was already doing. I was doing it. So I thought I should really actually have 10% of my time. That's the whole point of it at Leeds. If you actually become a staff sustainability architect, 10% of your time has been signed off by your line manager and your institute director to say that they are happy and support you doing sustainability for the institute or your group or your lab or wherever you're working. And obviously then there's another, I think there's 50 of us now at Leeds that are all staff sustainability architects. So obviously it's across a massive breadth of labs and things here. So it just seemed more sensible that some of my time was actually dedicated to doing what I was doing anyway, so then I can actually dedicate more time to it rather than think, oh, I just kept this sort of fitting it in while I was doing my actual work. I could actually just think, well, actually no, I'm having these meetings with the sustainability group, and then we write notes and we have action plans so we can basically work towards silver. So, because obviously silver's a lot more involved than bronze for the accreditation for LEAF, so it was just so I could properly push and drive it as well. And I think it's the right thing to do, really. I think, and everybody knows it's the right thing to do. But as soon as I said I was doing it, the fact that I had so many volunteers, without even nag anybody, or there was literally, I think it's because so many people are so passionate about sustainability, because obviously they're in a science environment or working in medicine, they want to make a difference, so they can make a difference twice. Because obviously if they can make what they're doing more sustainable, and they're making changes or helping people live longer, making new drugs and everything, you can have double the impact, really.
Yeah,
So.
that's right.
What's been the biggest challenge in getting that message across to your colleagues?
The fact that I think it's the fact people, oh my goodness, we're never going to do anything because we use so much plastic, and with all the waste we produce, but it's just like the list, like you said, Alex, the little tiny steps of just dropping your freezer to -70. Do you need 3 fridges? Do you need 3 freezers? Could you move it all into one fridge? It's just little tiny things. That's what I think we've had, I've heard before, it's always a journey. Sustainability, you just get on and it will always change, because science, as I think one of my favourite phrases from my PhD supervisor many years ago, it's called research, not search, because you found it immediately, you'd stop, and we never stop. So why should we stop with sustainability? Basically, you just need to make tiny little steps, and those tiny little steps will be massive at some point, because they'll all accumulate. If everybody puts one plastic bottle in the recycling, and there's 400 people, that's 400 bottles. So, then obviously over a year it's loads, isn't it? So,
yeah.
Look how difficult it is for fundraising. How difficult is it for somebody to raise £600 during their fundraising activities? You can get that just by making this really small change in the lab.
Yeah.
Almost paying for another researcher.
It does, but unfortunately, I think Andrea and Caitlin alluded to, we don't actually. That's different money, isn't it, for funding, science funding, and research funding. It's sort of like you get the money to do your research, but obviously some of it's for your normal work and your energy and lighting and things. That's taken off before you even see your money. So, but it will make a difference. It will. I mean, that's the difference. That's a really easy thing to do to make a difference. And there are other small things you can do, like just make sure your stuff's serviced. Things that can be service them, look after them, teach people how to do. If it's expensive, make sure people know how to use the piece of equipment correctly. If you can switch it off, switch it off.
Just remind them to turn the lights off when they leave.
Yeah. I mean, that's just a really easy one. I'm quite pleased to say that sometimes when I come in late, the place is in darkness, which is, you think, oh my goodness, that's actually, that is a massive thing. If we've come in and, it's just, you could come in because you had a call out or something, and the place is in darkness. And then some people are quite good, they'll send me a photograph if it's in light. So other people just send us a photograph saying you might want to send something out. So these 3 floors had lights, not loads, but it's becoming more normal that you don't leave lights on, because they're the easiest things to switch off, because you've got to leave your incubators on, your fridges, your freezers, other pieces of equipment. Your lights, your experiments don't care. In the middle of the night, there's no lights on. So, but like you say, it's just tiny tiny little things that you can do that will make a massive difference.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned Caitlin and Andrea there from Leaf. Has that framework helped yourselves and other institutes to be more sustainable, that framework?
Yes, it has, because obviously I think when you first start thinking about, oh my goodness, I'm going to do bronze leaf, you think, oh my god, it's going to be loads of work. And then when you actually start reading the criteria, you're thinking, oh, actually, I want to do 60% of these, which I don't think people realise. Just as general laboratory practice, you're probably doing loads of it. Because the first one is just like, do you have different bins? Clearly you're going to have bins for the lab, bins for some recycling, you put your cardboard waste somewhere else. So that's, and obviously as you move through the levels, it gets more and more stringent. But the bronze ones are all sort of relatively achievable, and then a lot of it's just like keep your hood sash down when you use a fume hood, which obviously you do anyway. So, you know, and a lot of it's to do with your servicing your equipment, a lot of your communal equipment and varying other bits, your balances and your pipettes, it'll all get in service, and that's another easy win on the actual criteria as well.
Yeah.
And then a lot of it's basically switch off your lights.
Yeah.
And then the other one, you know, what's your settings on it? Does your computer go into sleep? If you walk away it, just set it so it goes to sleep so it doesn't use any power. So some of them are in the bronze. It's just really, and also they have like, you know, why do you do it? Here's some signage as well. So they do have like some packages. I think they've improved it. They've added a lot more things to it recently. And then obviously when you move into silver, it's more what other streams of, you know, what other streams are you doing. So obviously we recycle our tip boxes. A lot of people now are using the cardboard inserts for their tips. Bottle recycling. We've actually joined with the trust to actually, we've got some dried normal recycling in the labs for bottles that are just PBS water and that are from a GM1 environment that people can put in a dry mix recycling to just go into the recycling. So that's a massive difference. And obviously that's quite hard to get people's heads around, that it's got water in it and or you put a clean pipette in it and it's not done anything, it's fine. So I checked with the trust with what we wanted to do, so a big shout out to Kelly for that one as well. So we're in the process. We've only been doing that for a couple of months, and I've not done any number crunching yet. But I think that might be the one we'll start pushing a bit more, to make sure people are doing that one. So that's quite good really. So Leaf also helps promote sustainability in labs, and it also gives a clear pathway to continuous improvement. Obviously with the bronze, silver and then gold, it can save money, and also it encourages collaboration. 17 people from completely different, obviously we're all in the same institute, well that's a lie, someone's from a different institute, so we've got 16 of us from Limmer and then one person from Learn. So because we're all on the same site, we're just working together, because obviously a lot of the stuff goes through the team I work in, for waste and deliveries and recycling and varying other bits and pieces. So that's why I'm pushing on it and leading on it, but they're all coming up with their own things they do in the lab and stuff, it's really good, to be honest. It's massively engaged, and we put notices out in any magazine for work, for what we've been up to. I'm about to launch a sustainability SharePoint page for our institute as well, just to sort of give easy wins on what you can do, and varying things, because I think some of the criteria are sort of hard to get your head around if you're not actually reading all the information. I think it's just really good, because there's obviously loads of people at University of Leeds that are on the journey as well. So
sounds like your institute's fortunate they have yourself as very experienced at the head, because you're doing this best practice anyway, so you're kind of taking the bronze and silver, maybe even gold criteria anyway. But I suppose the beauty of Leaf is if you don't have a Marie Parker, then you have this framework to follow, if you see what I mean. If you don't have an experienced person, then you've got this sort of guidelines to follow. So yeah, I think it's useful for areas, as I say, where you don't have that experience maybe.
What sort of objections, if any, do you come up against on a kind of day-to-day basis?
a lot of them is just like, why so much packaging? I think, why does like one tiny item come in a massive box? So I think that's, for companies and stuff. So they're getting better, because a lot, obviously, when I did actual research, everything just got shipped on dry ice. But a lot of things now just come room temperature. So I think a lot of it's just, why aren't companies which they are doing more, but I think that's what it is. And why aren't the rest of the university doing, or the sector doing more? But I think obviously you get so stuck in your own little world that you forget that it's like research and higher education is so massive, and we all want different things, and it's hard to find out what you want to know easily. So you don't want to be greenwashed, and then you want to make sure that you are using the right thing for the right reason. And obviously we all know that it's quite hard if you've obviously got a protocol or you're doing a clinical trial. You can't change a lot, because you've got to match everybody else who's working on the same clinical trial as you. So sort of has to have some discussion. So, well, you could always use that while you're doing that clinical trial, but it might be that in the background you could trial something that might be more environmentally friendly. So when you do another clinical trial, you could try doing that. Well, we've even had people think, well, we've been on the meeting, they've got loads. Obviously they have to buy in enough blood tubes for all the samples to get in all the samples for a clinical trial, and they had loads left over, and they've reached out to someone to say, well, does anybody want them? And someone's actually said they'll use them in teaching, because they can be expired, because all they're doing is practicing. So we thought, well, that's much better than them having to buy in-date ones, because all they're doing is learning how to take blood and put them in the tube and everything. So they're all going to get shipped off for that. So I think it's just finding other areas as well. So I think that's the hardest thing, is people want to help try so much, they just don't know where to start. I think compared to a lot of people, I think, because obviously Luke knows I've been here a very long time. Everybody knows who I am, so it makes it a lot easier to have these discussions. And the fact that we've got a wide range, so we've got on the sustainability group, we've got group leaders, we've got postdocs, we've got PhD students, and we've got technical staff. So we've got every single sort of person in our research institutes is on the committee, so is on the group. So that makes it a lot easier to have discussions, and then people are just supportive. I think I don't know, I'm sure other people have said they've struggled, but they have just been very supportive of everything we've done. I don't know whether we're just, because we're off-site, we're just a little bit more close-knit as a group. So we work at St James's, and obviously the university's at main campus, but we're just off-site bits. So we do everything we're supposed to do, but obviously we do it together as well, so it makes it a lot more collaborative, I think.
Yeah, I think that's great. And having those groups is so good for communication, and just give reassurance to people. Like you say, there is innovative solutions on the market. It's just having that reassurance that it's going to work for your research. And that group, if someone within that group's tried something and it works and then shares that knowledge, that's how things start to grow. A lot of our suppliers come out with great new products, but no one really trusts them until somebody's used them at University of Leeds, University of Oxford, or a big pharma company. Someone gives a seal of approval, and all of a sudden everyone adopts it. So it does take those groups and those communication channels for sure. You've touched on quite a few very impactful changes, Freezer program being one of them. Is there any other big impactful change that you've made that you want to shout about and tell people about?
Freezer challenge, I think it's easy to, once you get going, it's really easy to continue. And then the fact that you always get results at the end of it, and obviously, like I keep saying, every single research is driven by results. So it's easy to put it in a graph or a table and just say, oh, look what we've done, basically. And then they can see how many freezers we've disposed, freezers, might I say, 70s, we've disposed of, how many samples we've disposed of, how much energy we've saved. It's a really easy, because all you do is you fill it in and the actual portal calculates it all for you. So that's a very easy win to actually just to do something, because you're already doing it. So you might as well get a win out of it, because that's what I think when I first, because I think we were one of the first to adopt it here, and I wrote a case study to say why we did it, and then I think a lot of other people, like this is the first year that Leeds has had quite a big group of people doing it, and I did say it will be hard the first year you do it, it will be hard, but every single year it gets easier, because you're just using the same spreadsheet with the information. I mean, I've got a spreadsheet that everybody else fills in, so we have got a lot of buy-in from everybody here. So we have loads of people defrosting their own freezers and everything. So I think we are just quite lucky where we are. So it is nice to see how everybody does work together, and it's led by a couple of them. So Ever and Sophie, our area coordinators, lead on their floors, which makes it a lot easier to do the freezer challenge, and then some of the facilities, obviously we've got a massive sample processing, so big shout out to Joe as well, who does loads, because obviously they've got a lot of fridges and freezers because they basically run a massive biobank. So so we're quite lucky that we've got 3 facilitators that sort of help push it on those floors as well, which makes a massive difference as well, I think. So but yeah.
Brilliant.
It's definitely one of the better initiatives, one of the best initiatives I've seen, the freezer challenge. The competition element of it as well. Everybody seeing how they're comparing with everybody. It's definitely the best way to kind of force it through.
Yeah, because our lot are desperate. I think our lot now are desperate to get to top 3 now.
Yeah, and that's so is everybody else. So
Yeah. So because they were saying, can we start earlier now? That's why. So I basically sent out the spreadsheet a little bit earlier than I would normally. So it finished in July, and I redid it, and it went out in August. So, or they can do all year, but they're actually starting already. So I've already got 3 to dispose of, Marie. That's literally what I've been told recently. They've already got 3 freezers to dispose of.
Brilliant. That's great.
So,
I think scientists, by their very nature, are driven by data, aren't they? I think it's great that you can give them this feedback on how they've done and actual figures of what they've saved in terms of energy and cost. But Econics with their biobins do the same. They have a calculator. If you switch from this plastic bin to this cardboard bin, here's how much carbon you save, and here's how many times that's a plane flying around the earth, and giving that empirical data back to people is so encouraging. And then it just hopefully spirals, I suppose.
Yeah.
The question I always ask: do you think labs can become carbon neutral, or will there always be an element of waste? I mean, you've always got to have your freezers on, regardless of the temperature, and what you've got in them. Or is it just a nice target to have? Is that?
It's a nice target to have, I think, but we can always try. If you can drop your freezer, drop your freezer temperature. Simple things like using timers on water baths. So they're only on when you need them on. You don't need to leave them on all overnight. You can just have it on so it comes on at 8 o'clock in the morning, so it's warm, ready to do experiments, and switch it off when you leave. And I think the one trick that we're probably missing is that we need to work with suppliers more, so we get to use better sustainable products and that are fit for purpose. Because I know obviously you've got loads of targets you have to meet. They're very different from our targets, but you have loads of targets that you have to, suppliers have to meet for their sustainability goals as well. And I think Caitlin and Andrea gave some very interesting answers on waste. If anybody else wants to check out that podcast, I thought that was quite interesting about that. But I think that will be a massive step change for a lot of people's how they think about waste from a laboratory. I think because we are all very we use some obviously in a cancer research environment, and we use some not very nice chemicals and substances as well. So you have to be more mindful of what our options more mindful and explore our options to see what else we could do. And it is about training, but I think we're probably nearly getting to the stage where there could be a change coming, that we could actually be doing more, I think. So it would be nice, but I don't think we'll ever be carbon neutral, but we need to just keep trying, don't we, really, I think. So
yeah, it's that continuous improvement, isn't it? if the University of Leeds, and I'm sure they would never would, let you go to another university and they weren't doing anything, what 3 things would you sort of implement on your first day to be more sustainable in that new lab?
I think I'd probably, I'd re-implement having the stores.
Yeah.
Because it's just, it's just like it's a no-brainer really. It's just quite hard because all the funding bodies charge differently, and it's just making sure that everything is correctly auditable. I think that's the issue, but I think that would be a really good way of being more sustainable, because you'd only be buying what you need. Obviously it'd be just general consumables, not specifics for experiments, but then you'd only have what you actually needed, rather than just people buying a whole box of stuff. They could come and buy a bag of something.
Yeah.
If I'd also, depending on if you haven't signed up to LEAF or Green Impact or My Green Lab, do that, because it helps you know where you are. If you're working properly, you can quite quickly get bronze, and then I'm assuming it everywhere else, but you keep your certification for 3 years, and then you either have to be reassessed or be going for silver or gold, depending where you are. And then clearly I'd say sign up to the International Freezer Challenge, basically, because it's if you're in a lab, if you're in a high research environment, it is a really easy win. It gives you loads of information.
Yeah, no, great answer. I'm so pleased you said stores then. I've been supplying to universities for 17 years. I genuinely believe the stores people are the unsung heroes of sustainability, because if you think about it, they're buying in bulk, so they're massively reducing the carbon footprint of delivery, because it's a single delivery instead of potentially 100 deliveries. They're breaking down packs, as you said, so people only use or only take what they need. They're not storing tons of stuff on the shelf that expires. They're putting stuff in freezers in bulk as well, so they're storing reagents in bulk in a freezer, and it's only being used, as and when it's needed, and potentially not even seeing another freezer. It might be used on the bench straight away as soon as it's got that single freezer. And then disposing of all the waste as well, hopefully sensibly as well. So they're collating, the waste products and getting rid of it in a single delivery. So yeah, I think that's a great answer, stores. I really do.
Do you think sustainability is worth paying for, or does it have to be cost effective?
I think some of it is, yes, but obviously it does need to be cost effective, because obviously we all know that applying for funding is really competitive, and that needs to be cost effective, because obviously you need to be cost effective about all the other people you're applying against as well. So, but there's some, but I think the more people that use sustainable products, the cheaper the cheaper they'll become. So, because I know obviously we're swapping to bioethanol at the moment, so we're just making the transition to bioethanol, and obviously at the moment it's twice the price of normal ethanol, but our institute did actually support that as well, which is good. But obviously I think if more and more people use it, the more they'll make, so the cheaper it will become. And then I know some people are looking into more bio-green plastics, so and they'll come down, if more people are buying them, they'll come down in price as well. So I think sometimes it's worth it, because obviously the more we all buy as a higher education unit, the more likely that we'll be using it, and then it will come down in price as well. So we just need to use our voice, I think, a bit more, basically.
It's quite difficult when a lot of it requires a bit of upfront cost as well. Looking at the likes of high-end, ultra-low efficiency freezers, if you don't need new freezers, it's a big expense, but over the lifetime, long-term investment, it's worth it.
Yeah.
Even here, we're not a lab, but solar panels power our lights, and charging Luke's car outside as we speak. But it wasn't a small investment, but over the lifetime and into the future, we're almost off grid here.
Oh wow! That's great.
The solar panels power the lights, charge the car, power this TV. But there was a bit of upfront investment required on that. I think it's worth it, personally.
Yeah. but I'm guessing it'd be quite hard. I don't think we'd be able to go off grid with research.
Harder for you guys, but we don't use a lot of electricity here
Yeah,
anyway.
I think it'd be quite hard. I think to be off grid, because obviously if you have a power cut, that ain't gonna be good.
No. Well, okay, we just lose our water machine for a few minutes and then our power costs. It's not a massive problem.
Yeah. I think you're right about the economies of scale. We had quite a Planet Stage on talking about their plant-based plastics, and they are more expensive, you know, so they're getting away from that because they don't make tons and tons unlike like the big manufacturers do. But one day, hopefully, they will, and at that point where they become parity, then it'll be an absolute no-brainer for everybody to use them. And there is a benefit to some of these products. The hidden benefits are, you know, Planet Safe, you can reuse it if you dare. You know, there is a superstition within tissue culture, I understand that, but if you can prove that it can be reused, then you halve the cost every time you use it. So, yeah, is that, going back to what you were saying earlier, it's that kind of trust and faith and belief to do it and drive to do it, and then sharing that with your colleagues and you know, publishing it on papers, and then hopefully it'll work through the literature, you know, and other people will read it, and that'll be the norm. So yeah, we're on the journey, definitely. Speaking of journey, you've been on quite a long one for sustainability, way before Leaf and My Green Lab was even a thing. What plans have you got for the future of your labs?
We're applying for silver. I'm in the process of just finishing off the application, and then the group will be meeting in September just to sort of finalise it all, and then hopefully silver in the next couple of months. And then after that, there's a lot of changes going on at the University of Leeds. We'll probably sort of look at some of the goal, but potentially not go for, you know, we'll just sort of like keep it a bit more low key for a bit. And I will probably look at the blueprint from the University of Leeds just to see what we can do as a whole for the institute as well. So that'll be what we'll probably be doing for that. Clearly, we'll be doing our 5th year of Green International Freezer Challenge, and then hopefully I'm going to put it here now. So Viola have recently come in. We've got one of the newer water units they don't recycle some of their stuff with, so they are looking to recycle some of the actual packs with me. So fingers crossed that will be good. So because you've got to ask the questions. I think it's just, if you see something, just ask, because they generally want to do something, but they want to know why we want to do it. So we had to have a really good meeting, and pretty positive. I think that something will come. It might take a while, but like I say, we've got a moment we can store the items, so it's worth storing the items to see whether we can get them recycled, because obviously that's better than me just putting it for waste basically at the moment. So hopefully that will come to fruition soon, and then just see what else is out there, but see what else everybody else is doing, because the difference is sustainability community shares. It's not like competitive like research is. It's, if someone's got a good idea or they're doing something, they're quite happy to go, why don't you try this waste provider, we tried this, what are you doing, can you you know, what have you tried in the lab, what helps, how did you get everybody to sign up to the freezer challenge, how did you manage to get that recycled. There's just loads of other bits, and you know, it's just, I think it's a good place to be, I think, at the moment, because it is so collaborative, I think. So it's just to keep your eye out on what else is out there, to see what other differences, other changes you can make, I think. Fingers crossed, storms. Fingers crossed. Storms. So yeah, but yeah.
I think that's a really good point about asking them, and maybe putting a bit of pressure on suppliers as well, because you've probably got, or you as scientists have probably got more experience with their products than they do, and know the possibilities of, you know, the bit that goes in the bin, the bit that piles up all the time. You know, maybe spot an opportunity to do something about that waste that they don't see, and only by asking the question will they look into it. And you know, we're all driven by commercials. If they see that they're losing business because they're not doing something, I'm pretty much guaranteed they'll look into whether they can do it. So yeah, great point again, Marie.
Well, actually, I did a sustainability workshop at Technical Managers Conference this year, and I just sort of reached out to probably 15 suppliers, and the amount of information I got back about sustainability was I could have literally run an entire 2-day conference on it. So it's all out there. It's just getting it to the right people to have those conversations, I think. So I just had a few, and obviously I didn't talk about that in the end because I would have been there all day, but I just sent all the information out to everybody about it. So it's like you said, Luke, it's asking the question, because they've got the answers. It's just they don't realise that we actually want to, they don't know we want to know the answers. So I think it's just sort of like we're in a very strange sort of circling pattern about what do we actually want to do, and there is a massive appetite for change. So I think we just do need to discuss it, because we have at Leeds, we have a sustainability network group as well for labs, and we all go to that, and purchasing are now coming to that meeting as well, so we can get them involved in what is greener, what can you get these, we want to ask these questions, can you do it for us? So I think it's just sort of like growing, because everybody does actually care. So that's the nature of being human, isn't it? They do actually want to make a difference. It's just they're not quite sure whether it's the right time to make that difference, because like you said, changing things is so expensive in industry, but for our suppliers, and they can't do a massive change if nobody's going to buy anything.
Yeah, very true.
Where can people learn more about what you do, what you're doing, and what you've achieved so far?
Obviously, I'm on LinkedIn, so check me out on LinkedIn. And then for our actual institute, if you just Google Leeds Institute of Medical Research, Leeds University, you'll find a lot of information about what our institute actually does. So, and eventually I'll be on there as well, I'm assuming. So, but LinkedIn is probably where you find my random posts about sustainability.
Very good. And is there anyone else you'd recommend that we have on the podcast?
Probably Tom Cooper, our head of sustainability at Leeds, and then there's James Fox, who works at the University of York, and he actually does green impact. So he uses green impact, not leaf. So so I think they'd be two good guests.
Brilliant, thank you. Well, Marie, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the podcast. Thank you so much for your insight into the University of Leeds specifically, but also science in general, how it's being more sustainable, and certainly the tips on how to be more sustainable for labs was really, really useful. So thank you.
Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you want to see any more of these. And thank you, everybody, and thank you, Marie.
Thanks,
Thank
Marie.
you too, both. Thank you.
Thank you.
Science and healthcare.